guys? Welcome back to First Seed Sports Fantasy. We're here to talk about football and Dynasty. We're gonna start off with our Dynasty first overall Dynasty draft of the new year. I'm with my host Kyle Krajewski and Mike Del Corso, and we're gonna start with me being the first pick. But before we do that, I got to give a shout out to Underdog Fantasy, of course, for sponsoring this video. They match 100% on your first deposit, no matter if you're betting on the Masters. I got Justin Thomas, 12-1 odds, or if you want to do the NBA playoffs coming up, Underdog Fantasy is the spot that you need to go for your fantasy odds, and they'll help you, of course, with the 100% match on your first deposit. So Underdog Fantasy, that's the spot to go. And without further ado, it is my go for the first pick for the Dynasty mock draft. And for this pick, I'm going to go Najee Harris.
Oh,
wow.
Najee Harris. Yeah, Najee Harris. He is undoubtedly the number one option in terms of running back for the Steelers. Thank you, sir. Najee Harris. Just looking at the snap shares, 100% first week, 95% the second week. It doesn't really dip below the 60s for any week besides week 12 against Cincinnati. So that alone, just for me, availability is the best ability. And the snap share is a great indicator of how much you're on the field. For Najee, there's really no competition for that. It's his first year. He's obviously a bona fide number one running back. He's going to get a lot of touches, and with that, he's going to get more opportunities. So for that, I got Najee as my number one. I know it's a hot take, but running backs are kind of a premium when it comes to this league, especially if it's not a super flex. So
yeah,
I gotta go Najee my first.
And Kyle, before you pick really quick, Dante, I love the pick. I think anybody you go basically in the first round here has to be a young guy for the most part. So I don't think you can go wrong with anybody really if you're going young. Second off, just to clarify, we're only doing one QB in the lineup, two running backs, and Kyle, are we doing 2 or 3 receivers today?
it is 3 receivers and 2 flex.
Sounds good. And 1 tight end, baby. All right.
It's Dynasty startup, no rookies. This is as if we're drafting. You're waiting for the NFL draft at the end of the year or end of the month when we're just kind of hyped up on Dynasty. So we're starting up, baby. This is where this is how we would draft if this were our league. So Dante took Najee at 1. I'm at 6. After Dante went Jonathan Taylor, Justin Jefferson, Christian McCaffrey, and Dalvin Cook. All honestly fantastic picks. Dante, I think if I were in your position, I may have gone Jonathan Taylor. But quite honestly, can't blame you. The volume, the offense that is most likely going to get better if they move on from Trubisky, which I don't see why they wouldn't. But for me at 6, I'm going to go with my guy, Jamar Chase.
Ooh.
Jamar Chase. Okay.
I feel like, I mean, come on. Rookie of the year. He was fantastic in his first season. He's with his college quarterback. He balled out. He helped the team go to the Super Bowl, and I don't see why they can't continue to do so. And with that, I'll take youngest receiver available or youngest best receiver, kind of the combo of the two, and enjoy it.
Okay. I like that. I like that. Another very, very young guy there. I mean, you can't go wrong.
Would you take him ahead of like DeAndre Swift though, or Alvin Kamara or Derrick Henry?
So that's the split. I think after those first 4 running backs, Najee, Jonathan Taylor, Christian McCaffrey, and Dalvin Cook, maybe before McCaffrey, that's when I would start looking at receivers, at least in startup. I'd take Jefferson first because that dude's going to ball forever. And then I would go Jamar Chase. And then I would go for McCaffrey, Swift. Just because it's just receivers play longer.
The receiver, like the depth though, is so like steep. I feel like you could get. Obviously, you're not going to get a Jamar Chase in like the third or fourth round, but I don't know. I just feel like you can get that same in the tier of quality with the third or fourth round. But I don't know if you can get like a Najee or Jonathan Taylor in the third or fourth round, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Or like a DeAndre Swift, since it's your pick, like a DeAndre Swift, Alvin Kamara, Derrick Henry. I'm not sure you can get that in the third or fourth round. Whereas like you could probably get something that's equivalent, if not maybe, a little less than Jamar Chase in the third or fourth round.
I think it's more the fact that these guys are, I think, more guaranteed to continue to be great, whereas running backs continue to hit walls. We see it year after year. I mean, we were talking about this before the show. 3 years ago, our first 3 picks in the draft were Saquon Barkley and Ezekiel Elliott. And I think that alone tells me why I wouldn't go running back. At least after those. I mean, I'm going to go Jonathan Taylor, Najee, Dalvin. Those are without a doubt my top 3. But after that, then I'd go receiver. But then we start looking at guys like I said, Zeke and Saquon, where after just a few years, they've fallen off. Whereas a few years ago, you look at the receivers, Devonta Adams, Diggs was probably up there.
Mm-hmm.
DK Metcalf was up there last year. But these top receivers continue to stay at the top, where running backs more often than not fall off a cliff.
All right. Yeah, I agree with that. And just the position-wise, wide receiver is always going to have a longer span in the NFL, bearing no injuries, of course, than a running back. So, I love that pick. I can't lie. I'm surprised to see Tyreek Hill go in the first round.
I'm with you there.
I am surprised by that. I mean, the quarterback play is still questionable. They have not said anything about plans to go get another QB. I think they're sticking with their man. I don't like the pick in the first round. So, you know what, Team 11, that's just terrible, bro. So I'm gonna pick it up here. And you know what? I have the back-to-back. This is going to be my dynasty startup. I'm treating it as if I'm going to have this team for the next 10 years or so. And right now, I'm going with the youngest running back left available, and that is Javonte Williams. I'm going to snag him over a bunch of big names there that you see on that list left for running backs.
You sure want Chubb? You don't want Chubb? You don't want Saquon? You sure?
So my thing with the running backs remaining, there's 2 that I really love. I really love Eckler and Mixon. I love them. Both young guys as well. I think Mixon's a lot younger than or a year younger than Eckler. I love those guys, but this guy Javonte, man, is in a revamped offense now. Quarterback's still a bum in my opinion. But I love how his career has started, right? He comes in 1 year. Melvin Gordon is basically non-existent now. Melvin Gordon didn't even get re-signed by the Broncos, and he could have. So that just shows you how much faith they have in this man, Javonte Williams. And you look at the end of the year, he was giving you 20-point fantasy weeks, and he wasn't even 100% taking 100% of the snaps. So I am super excited for him. If Russ does work out and that Broncos team does explode, I think Javonte Williams will be I could ballpark it around top 7 fantasy back for the rest of his career. That's how I'm looking at it here. So I absolutely love him. If I'm going to have a team for that long, I'm going with that. Second pick here. This is a little tricky because I see the wide receivers going here, and I love stud wide receivers. And I'm looking at Devonta Adams. And this is a hard one for me because nobody knows what it looks like yet. Nobody knows what that Raiders offense looks like. I don't think they gave him all that money to ignore him. I think he's going to get his touches. He's going to get his targets or whatever. He's going to be involved. It's scary, though, in a dynasty to take him. And I don't feel 100% comfortable doing it. So I think what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to sway back to the running backs. And I'm going to take a guy that I previously mentioned, and that's going to be Joe Mixon. I love Joe Mixon. I would have considered him first if Javonte wasn't there. Another young guy. He had 1 year of injuries, and besides that, he's been balling. You got a team that just went to the Super Bowl, an offense that's stacking the O-line now. I love it, and he's a young guy. He's not that old. I have it here. Surprisingly enough, he seems older than he is. Let's see here. Joe Mixon is only 25 years old. Crazy. So, I like the young guys. My dynasty team is starting off with 2 young running backs that I could have for at least the next 4 or 5 years or so and possibly longer there. So that's what I'm sticking with here.
Dante's going to hate my team. I know for a fact because I'm looking at the receivers.
Oh my God!
Still available.
Please, for the love of God.
No, I'm not. I think I know who you want. I'm not taking him. I think, but I'm looking at the receivers, and I love so many of these guys that are still available because these young receivers are in fantastic positions. And they will continue to be in fantastic positions or get traded to better ones. But with this pick, my second round pick, after after he took Mixon, was Eckler, Devonta Adams, CeeDee Lamb, A.J. Brown, and Stephon Diggs. With my pick at 207, this was trickier than I thought. There's a few guys that I want, but I'm going to take the top guy here. Deebo Samuel. Right. I think the way that San Francisco used him last year is they figured him out. They figured out how to use him, and they're going to continue to use him just like that. And who doesn't want a piece of that pie? And he's only, 26? He's got a few years still left in him to be fantastic, and he will be fantastic those next few years. So give me a piece of that.
Oh, yeah. And then after the first quarterback off the board here. So
yes. After me was Nick Chubb, Patrick Mahomes, first QB off the board, Cam Akers, and then DK Metcalf. And now Dante is on the board, who I think wanted DK Metcalf.
No, sir. You already know who I wanted. Jalen Waddle. We're going with Jalen Waddle with the second pick. In a dynasty, man, I'm going all youngins, man. I want to be good for a long time. And Jalen Waddle, I think, provides that for me. With the addition of Tyreek Hill to their offense, the defense is going to be focused on him specifically. So it allows Jalen Waddle to just do whatever he wants with his speed. I mean, he's almost just as fast as Tyreek Hill. So he's going to be able to create that separation and get those short distance yards when that offense needs it. Based on last year's performance, in PPR format, at least we're looking at 20 points versus the Jets, 28 points versus Carolina. On those games, 10 receptions, 9 receptions. In Houston, he had 10 targets. Buffalo, he had 11 targets. So he gets those targets. And for me in a PPR format, especially as a rookie, that's super important. And I know Tyreek Hill is obviously going to take away from those touches to a degree, but because that defense is focusing on him so much, I feel like it will also open a lot of opportunities for Jalen Waddle to receive the same amount of work. I'm not going to say he's going to receive more because, 13 touches against Las Vegas. I mean, any fantasy owner is going to be happy with that. But, as long as it continues to have the same production, as long as he doesn't decrease from this season, his rookie year, I couldn't be happier.
Now, I will mention, I said earlier that I was scared of Devonte Adams with the Raiders because we haven't seen it yet. I think taking Waddle, if that Hill trade didn't happen, I probably would have even taken him earlier than you did. But I can't lie, I am shitting my pants when it comes to, you could say, the Raiders and the Dolphins. Now, who's the head coach? His name is, correct me if I'm wrong, Mike McDaniel. Is that his name?
Yes. I think it's McDaniels, but yes.
Right. Coming from San Francisco, I don't know what that offense is going to look like. And there you go, Dante stole my QB, man. That's a great pick. But yeah, the Dolphins and the Raiders for me, I still have not figured out what I think is going to happen, and I don't think we have enough information yet to like make me feel confident in taking one of them yet. So, but yeah, take it away, Kyle. Go ahead.
All right. Oh, Dante took his third pick. Let's hear it, Dante.
Yeah, this was tough. Pat Mahomes was obviously going to be my number one guy, but the computer kind of stole him away from me. So I decided to go with Justin Herbert just on the fact that Josh Allen is someone that I feel like is more of a mobile quarterback, and this is just like superstition more on like stats. I feel like they're both the same quarterback. I mean, you're not really going to get a huge discrepancy between the two, but for me, what led to Justin Herbert is that he just sits in the pocket more and relies on his receivers to gain his production, whereas Josh Allen more relies on his legs. And of course, you could argue like with the rushing yards, it's going to provide more points. But for me, Herbert is just a pocket passer that is able to find his receivers whenever he wants. There's never, even in his last season, there hasn't been a game where he's averaged under 20 points. He never averaged under 20 points or had as under 20-point game this past season. And that's because that he has the weapons that he needs to perform the way he does. Second overall QB, second overall in terms of points overall. And yeah, I just feel like with Herbert, it's second year Oregon. I mean, again, you could go Burrow, you can go Kyler Murray, you can go Lamar and still be happy. But I think with Herbert, you're gonna get those 30-point games more than those other his other opponents.
Options.
So yeah,
I personally would have gone Josh Allen just because I love that man to death. But at the same time, I can't fault you for either one. They are going to be fantastic QBs for the next foreseeable future of the NFL right there in that. Oh, the AFC is incredible. But after he took Herbert, was Josh Allen, then Saquon Barkley, and then two back-to-back tight ends in Kyle Pitts and George Kittle. Kyle Pitts, fantastic value in the third round, I honestly think, if you're looking at tight ends, especially to go right before Kittle. Beautiful. For me, I'm now on the clock, and I am going to go with someone who I think can and will move up in these dynasty rankings, these dynasty drafts in the next year, probably even over the summer as hype builds. And that's going to be Antonio Gibson. Of the, I think, 14 running backs taken already, he is the fourth youngest. And he has a role in this Washington offense. And I think it's just going to become more established and better and more beneficial to him. And I think he can be a solid RB1, who he is on my team, especially in Dynasty. And I love him in the third round. Fantastic. Give him to me all day. And I'm happy with that as my RB1.
I like it. I got a tough decision now. You see another back-to-back tight ends there, which is crazy.
Yes. So after me was Another back-to-back. I was sandwiched between two tight ends. Mark Andrews and Travis Kelce went off, and then J.K. Dobbins, then Ezekiel Elliott, then DeAndre Hopkins, and now Mike is on the clock again.
Yeah, and this is a tough one. I'm feeling the pressure here. I got the back-to-back. I got to wait a long time, and I don't want to wait for a quarterback for the 5th round here. So I'm going to take a quarterback here, and this is tricky. Okay, I'm looking at 2 guys, really. 3 guys. I'm looking at 3 guys. I'm looking at Burrow, I'm looking at Lamar, and I'm looking at Dak. And now, if you put him out there for a healthy season, I think that Lamar was going to trump all of them in points this year, I believe. I think Burrow was 7 this year on a fully healthy year for the most part, and I think Dak was 8 right behind him. You see what's going on with Dallas, just lost Amari, who I don't think is that big of a hit. I think he was a little bit overrated, as we've talked about previously. And then you just look at what they got going on in Cincy, and I can't pass that down. So I'm gonna go ahead and take Burrow here. I think the guy getting to a Super Bowl this young with the weapons he has, upgraded offensive line now, I'm ecstatic about him. Young guy, and now he knows what it takes to be successful, and he knows what it takes to even close out a regular season year where they were grinding for those last few games, and Burrow was going ballistic. So I think he has what it takes. He's got that X factor. I'm going to lock him in. And, it really sucks to say, but if I didn't already have 2 Bengals, my next pick most likely would have been T. Higgins.
I tell you what, Mike, if I didn't have 2 receivers and one of them was a Bengal, I was also thinking T. Higgins.
Yeah, I think the fact that T. Higgins is still here is ridiculous too. It's going to be hard to pass him here, but I'm looking at this receiver list, and now I'm kind of stumped. A lot of good guys, a lot of young guys here. I love me some Deontay Johnson, but they're going to have to figure out that quarterback situation for the next few years, and frankly, I don't want any part of it. Scary Terry would be my next option, and you look at him and what he can do even with no quarterbacks, but I actually believe that Carson Wentz will make him worse. And I don't think he could have a worse year than he did last year, but I mean fully playing healthy, I don't expect Carson Wentz to help him much. So I'm out on McLaurin, which leads me to my man, Chris Godwin. And I just think that Godwin's a beast in that offense year after year, even back with Jameis. They found a way to get him the ball. He's the target man in Tampa Bay. He's got one more year with the GOAT this year. And you know what? I saw him ball out with Jameis Winston, be a top 10 receiver. So I'm good for that. Give me any quarterback with Chris Godwin. That system and that offense is really what I'm picking there with that pick.
So after Mike took Chris Godwin, who I think is a fantastic pick, but there were a few others I might have taken above him, went Aaron Jones, Deontay Johnson, David Montgomery, Terry McLaurin, and then Kyler Murray. And here I am, 4th round. Ooh. I've got a little guy. Ooh, there's a few of them. You know what? I can't ignore it for too long. I'm taking T. Higgins. My 3rd receiver is going to be my second Bengal receiver. But I think the value is too great to pass up. T. Higgins, in my eyes, is a top 10 dynasty receiver. I think he is going to be – I mean, Mike talked about Burrow. I think he's going to be incredible. And he was incredible this year. And we saw that Jamar Chase and T. Higgins can both be really good together. And I think moving forward they will be. And for that, I will take T. Higgins and bank on them both being great.
I like that. You can't go wrong with that team. And that's the key with Dynasty too, I think, is picking guys on teams you think are going to be successful in the next few years. It's hard to go into the league right now and say, oh, yeah, I want to pick this guy on the worst team in the league that has no promise, no nothing, no hope, a.k.a. the Browns right now, unless they figure something out with Deshaun. But, it's the teams and the system that I feel like you invest in the most with these picks.
With that said, I'm going to go with TJ Hawkinson, tight end, for the Lions. Tight end is a very scarce position. After Waller, Kelsey, and Kittle, the drop off is pretty significant. So the reason I went with TJ is because he has the promise to have that consistency in terms of targets. You could see week 1 against San Francisco, 11 targets, Green Bay at 9, Cincinnati at 11, Philly at 11, before he got hurt, of course. He was that number 1 option on Detroit's offense. And I think for that, with his age, of course, he can't be ignored as that pick with the tight ends. And my next pick is going to be Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I know it's going to probably be a hot take, but I think with the direction they're going, I think they're going to rely on the run game and their offensive line because they put so many resources in that offensive line. I think the offense is going to kind of, with Tyreek Hill moving, I think they're going to try to move towards a run-heavy offense and allow Pat Mahomes to, create his offense when the defense is focused on the run offense that they have. So with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, you got 16 points the first week. 14, 17 carries, 14 carries the first week, 17 carries third week. He's obviously their lead back. I know Darrell Williams had a lot of impact when Clyde was hurt, but as soon as Clyde came back, it was clear that it was the number 1 option. So I feel comfortable with that pick, especially with Tyreek being gone. It's just a weapon. It's a weapon that is not available to them anymore, so they're going to have to rely on Clyde. And that's my pick.
I dig it, dude. Let's see. So after Dante went Darren Waller, Lamar Jackson, Devonte Smith, and then Leonard Fournette. And that leaves me in a predicament that I don't want to be in. And I've got 1 running back, and I should probably have a second one because it is looking pretty light. However, there's one guy here who was a rookie last season who I think I don't think his situation is perfect, but I think for the foreseeable future, he will be a just fine and probably better than average running back for my fantasy team. That's Elijah Mitchell. I think I take my second San Francisco receiver as well. I'm doubling up on San Francisco and Cincy, but I've got no issue with that. Those are 2 great offenses. So give me some Eli. And then after me went Amari Cooper, a run of receivers, it looks like. Amari Cooper, Mike Evans, Michael Pittman, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Elijah Moore. And Mike, you are on the clock.
So wait, hold on. Before you go, you don't think Trey Sermon's going to impact Elijah Mitchell's role at all?
No. If he didn't have any impact on his role this season, I don't think he will. Definitely not this year, and probably not moving forward. And I'm upset to say that because I was very high on Sermon as well. But the fact that he had almost bare minimum opportunities last season doesn't worry me at all.
All right. So I'm on the clock here. A lot of young receivers just went. Lots of young receivers. Receiver at this point in the draft, I'm looking at the ones on the list here, and I'm not really biting on any of them. I think a lot of these guys are very, very high on this list here compared to the guys down below that I think can easily match them in production. So I'm actually going to steer back to the running backs here. Make sure that I have a good rotation this year. Like every year, you never know what happens with these running backs, man. So I'm going to go ahead, and this is going to be a tough decision, but I'm going to actually take A.J. Dillon. And I'm a big fan of Dillon, one for just his actual raw ability. His situation, obviously, right now isn't the greatest. Still a backup. Looks like that Packers team is just going to get worse at this point. So, I mean, it seems like there's a lot of changes coming to Green Bay soon enough. There's going to be something that happens. Once they realize this year that they're not as great as last year, moves are going to be made. I can't see Rodgers being okay with just being worse than the year before, you know? So I'm expecting some moves there. I'm taking Dillon for the long haul. That's obviously a guy with our 2 running back lineup here that wouldn't start for me. But I think the value is there to snag him this early just to hold on to him. Because when that guy gets his shot, he will be a monster in this league. And now, shifting from that, I am looking tight end here. And most likely, I think here I'm going to be a homer, and I'm going to take Dalton Schultz as my long-term tight end here. Younger guy, not too old, guy that Dallas just got rid of their supposed number 1 tight end from last year and gave Dalton Schultz, I believe, the franchise tag for this year. So I like Schultz. I like what Dallas is doing. He's at this point Dak's security blanket. He was the number 3 tight end last year. I think he's here for the long haul, and he's going to play that Jason Witten kind of with a mix of like a Y receiver role in this offense for years to come.
All right. And then after Mike went Michael Carter, Jerry Jeudy, Dak Prescott, Marquise Brown, and then Brandon Ayuk. And now it is back to me. Whew. I was really hoping Marquise Brown fell back to me. That man was sitting there for a little too long. But I understand why he's sliding. I mean, people are excited for every other receiving option in Baltimore except Marquise. But can't blame them. So I'm looking at the guys available, and I'm looking at my team structure. And I've basically got my core 5, 2 running backs, 3 receivers. And I guess now I can start playing around with other positions, or I can just kind of build onto these 2. But I think what I'm going to do, I'm drafting a running back. Mm-hmm. This is a prime example, Dante, of why early running backs can and may hurt you, and that is Miles Sanders. I think this dude coming out of college had so much potential, and I mean now he's looked at as a throwaway running back, somebody who is most likely going to be on my bench, and I'm just fine with that. I think he's a fine RB3, RB4 guy to have kind of as a backup, and I'm happy about that. So Miles Sanders as my RB3.
Listen, I can't be mad at that. I think even still with running backs, I think you could have won a little bit better. And with my pick, I'm going to solidify that with Damian Harris. I think that with Damian Harris, you kind of get the same level of production that you get with Miles Sanders. Given the fact that the Patriots offense relies so heavily on defense in the running game, Damian Harris is poised to just get the level of touches based on the style of play that the Patriots like to perform. I mean, you got 23 attempts, 100 yards. Against Dallas, 18 attempts, 100 yards. He had 5 100-yard games. 1.
Were 2 of them against the Jets
3.
last year?
Let's see.
one
We
with
got
the Bills.
one against the Jets. One against the Jets. And no, the first game against the Jets was 62 yards. The second game was 106.
Gotcha. Okay.
But yeah, I mean, even still, like the fact that they go against the Jets twice a year until the Jets kind of demonstrate that they are a capable football team, that just provides more leverage on my end as to why I would prefer to have Damian Harris to Miles Davis, Jesus, Miles Sanders. That just the division is just way easier, and I know that's saying something. With the NFC East and how open their defense has been with their division, but I just prefer Damian Harris in that situation. And the next pick, and I'm surprised that this guy is still on the board, to be honest with you, given how he performed last year. I'm gonna go Hunter Renfrow. Hunter Renfrow with my 7th round pick. I think with the even with the addition of Devonte Adams, I think that just adds more excitement to Hunter Renfrow and his performance for this upcoming year. I think that the defense is going to focus so much on Devonte Adams and Darren Waller. That's just going to open so many touches for Hunter Renfrow. I mean, you look at the targets that he had this past year: 9 targets against Baltimore, 9 targets against the Jets, 9 targets against Kansas City, 10 targets against Washington, 14 targets against Kansas City the second time they played. So it's just like, for me, the amount of targets just equivalates to the amount of touches that you get. Obviously, not every time a quarterback targets you, you're going to catch the ball, but I would want my quarterback to target my player as much as possible, especially in a PPR league. And I have a feeling that with Hunter Renfrow, at least for the seasons to come, he's going to be the target leader, at least for this team going forward, based on his position and the role that he plays. So I feel comfortable with Hunter Renfrow. I think last year was, I don't want to say a breakout year, but I think it was a precursor to what's to come for his career. And I definitely want to be a part of that. So Hunter Renfrow is my next pick.
And after Renfrow was Chase Claypool, Tyler Lockett, Allen Robinson, and then Jalen Hurts. And then it's back to me, and I already know who I'm taking. I'm surprised Dante wasn't clamoring for this guy. Cortland Sutton. I think, what is he? He's 26. I think with a new quarterback in Russell Wilson, he could be electric again like he was earlier in his career before a few injuries. But he still got it, I think. And worst comes to worst, he's second behind Judy in a team that very much seems like they want to pass a lot again. And I'm very comfortable taking him as my wide receiver 4 too. Give it all to me. I'm happy with Sutton. He's still pretty young and pretty spry, and I'm happy with it.
Yeah, I really like that pick there. I can't believe Allen Robinson fell that late too. Those 2 guys are definitely a shocker there. Even Thielen for his production. I get he's an older guy there, so that one makes kind of sense. But yeah, those receivers dropping were definitely shocking there. This leaves me in an interesting spot. I'm rocking with my 2 starting running backs, a backup at this point, starting QB and tight end. I got my stud receiver, and I'm going to add to the receivers because this guy should have not fallen this far, and that's Mike Williams. You're talking about Dynasty, where the guy just got a huge contract from that team, man. I want that all day, and I wish I could have been stacking him here with Justin Herbert, but, sucks. But, yeah, Mike Williams, man, I'm pumped about him. I can't believe he got that contract. That was shocking to me, but they obviously believe in him, and after the year he had last year, I mean, how could you not? So I love him, and Keenan Allen, as the years go on here, he's also getting up there in age. So I think it's going to be an interesting next few years to see what happens with that Chargers team. And I think eventually Mike Williams is going to be that number one guy. And wow, I would love a season to see Mike Williams as the number one guy in LA. So,
see, I think the opposite. Funny enough, I just think that he's a deep threat. He'll get his production if Herbert is able to connect with him on those deep threat opportunities. But as a number one option, I just feel like if the defense was to focus on him that much as a number one guy, I think it's pretty easy to kind of eliminate his abilities, whether it's just putting his safety over the top or whatever. But I don't know. The reason why I didn't go the reason why I went Hunter Renfrow as opposed to Mike Williams is because I think with Hunter Renfrow, you're going to get those receptions no matter what. Whereas Mike Williams is really kind of a deep threat guy. And of course, he's going to have those games where, like a week he's going to have like 35 points, but he is going to have those weeks where he's going to have like 5 points a week. You know what I mean? And I think with that, I would rather have like the basement level of Hunter Renfrow where you're going to get like at least maybe 5 receptions a game for how many yards, as opposed to Mike Williams where you'll get like 1 or 2 receptions for, 30 yards because he's just a deep threat guy. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I see what you're saying there. I definitely disagree in terms of taking away his abilities. I think teams have already tried that. The guy's just an animal. I think he's going to win on a ball no matter what. That's his thing. It takes me back to Des Bryant and what he used to do. He was a deep ball specialist. You just gave him the ball. He would be in blanket coverage, and he's coming down with it. And, when you have a gunslinger like Herbert, I can't bet against that. But yeah, so now I got my second receiver here. I basically have a full lineup already, minus my flexes, because obviously A.J. Dillon there in a dynasty stash is someone I'm excited about. But in terms of this upcoming year, he's probably not going to see my lineup too much. So I'm looking for a flex guy here. I'm looking running back or receiver. There is a lot of options out there, and these are kind of the rounds you get to in the dynasty draft when you start thinking short term. You start thinking like, all right, listen, I got my draft here. I'm set up. I want to win in the next few years. Who's the guys to get it done for me? And that's the mindset I have going into it here. And I got to tell you, it's hard. I'm not going to lie. I am so tempted to reach for a guy I want on the list I'm looking at right now. But because he is so far down on the list, I'm going to let it go for now. So, yeah, I'm going to go with a receiver here that I think is going to have some great output this year, and that's Juju Smith. I'm not a big fan of him in terms of his skill set. The TikToks can go to hell. I hate all of it. But I think the position he's in for at least this year, and if he does get that contract extension to stay with the Chiefs as their number one weapon, I'll take. Well, obviously never a number one with Kelsey, but I'll take that. I'll take those odds. I'm not betting against Mahomes not giving him the ball for at least next year. So I like that stash.
So after Juju went Kareem Hunt, Trey Lance, I was waiting for Team 10 and I were having a game of chicken on who would take a QB first because we were the last ones to go. So he took Trey Lance. Then Myles Gaskin, Tony Pollard, and then Rashad Bateman. Now, right now it seems like everybody's kind of in that vibe where we've got our starting lineup, or at least a good chunk of our starting lineup. And right now you're filling in the extra pieces. And the way I tackle this kind of section of the draft for a dynasty startup is I look at guys who – because the odds of I don't know, a wide receiver 3 or a wide receiver 2 on a team who's young to make that elite leap to win you your league either this year or in 5 years is very minimal. So this is kind of where I start to look at some of the veterans who are going to perform for the next 2 or 3 years and greatly perform. So guys, I can look at Odell or Tyler Boyd, even the third receiver in Cincinnati. But guys like Melvin Gordon or at the tight end position like Zach Ertz, Dawson Knox is old, or let's see. There's a bunch of like these old guys that are going to ball out this year and next year, but probably not like be your pillars on your team. But for that, after saying all that, I'm going to go with my guy. I think I have this guy on all of my dynasty teams. That's Calvin Ridley.
Fuck.
That's what I love to hear. With the depth at receiver that I have, I think I can absolutely wait the year of his suspension and have that elite status of a top 15 wide receiver on my team. So give me Ridley. I love him. I can wait the season with the 4 receivers I have.
And I'm up. Of course I'm up. I'm gonna go. My first pick. Did Damian Harris go?
You took him.
Of course it did. Let's see. I'm gonna go with Kadarius Toney. Of course, like there are obviously better wide receivers. I could go Michael Gallup, Tyler Boyd, and in fact, I'm actually going to change my mind and go Tyler Boyd.
You didn't pick, so good job.
I'm going to go with Tyler Boyd because that offense is so potent. Tyler Boyd has been known to. I mean, let's look at his stats. Jacksonville, 11 targets, 9 receptions, 7 targets against Baltimore, week 7, 8 targets against the Jets. For me, I don't want to say availability is the best ability, but because in this case, with this offense, you could be available, but you'll have T. Higgins and Jamar Chase also available most of the time. So I can't expect to say that he's going to get the most touches. And at 27, at the age of 27, I can't really say that he's a longevity pick. But I think for the time being, at this point, what appetizes me is the amount of targets and the amount of receptions that this guy gets. And that's just because of the offense. Like it's a pass-heavy offense with Joe Burrow and T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. So I'm inclined. The difference between Kadarius Toney and Tyler Boyd isn't on the player; it's more on the quarterback. And I just have more faith in Joe Burrow, obviously, than Daniel Jones. As a Giants fan, I'm saying that. So. Yeah, I have more faith in Tyler Boyd in that aspect. And then with my next pick, I'm going to go with Devin Singletary. I know Zach Moss has been sharing the workload with Devin Singletary, but at this point, I just feel like one person's gonna usurp the other, and I just have a feeling that Devin Singletary is going to be able to take that spot just on his performance. I think Zach Moss has the ability to generate bigger plays, but I think in terms of consistency, Devin Singletary is the better running back in terms of getting those short yardage plays. And for Buffalo, their offense, they kind of rely on that. They get the short yard runs, and then when it's like 3rd and 4, that's when they kind of really rely on Josh Allen to kind of get the play done. So I feel more comfortable with Devin Singletary as opposed to Zach Moss. Or for instance, who else is on the board? Alexander Madison. I could go Alexander Madison, but I feel like that would be just more of a handcuff a pickup than a reliable start. Darrell Henderson, I feel like with Cam Akers coming into the fold, like he kind of lost his position there. Melvin Gordon, we don't know where he's going to go. So in terms of the running backs, like I don't know, I just don't feel comfortable taking anyone else besides Singletary at this point.
Fair. So then after Singletary was Brandon Cooks, Chris Carson, Russell Wilson, and then Odell Beckham Jr. And then after that Russell Wilson pick, I see a guy who take Patrick Mahomes is taking a second QB in a single QB league. Tells me that I should probably take a quarterback. And with that, I'm stuck. But I'm going to go with the young guy. I'm going to go Justin Fields. I think the good we saw in him last year is the good we will continue to see out of him. And I think the sky is the limit on what he could be. And I went young. I was between him and Matthew Stafford, who went at pick 11. Mostly because it was Stafford for this year or Fields for the future. And I went with the future because I think he could be good this year, but also be great in the coming years. So I went with that. And then after me was Alexander Madison, Dawson Knox, another 2 tight end team, Michael Gallup, Rashad Penny, and then Matthew Stafford. And now, Michael, you are up.
And that hurts because my next 2 picks here, the only picks that I actually knew exactly who I was taking, were going to be Michael Gallup and Rashad Penny. Frankly, I've seen reports saying that Chris Carson is returning for the new year. I don't know how he's doing it. You look at like what doctors are actually saying about the injury he had with the neck surgery. They don't know if he's ever going to play again. And that could be coming out of right field. I could be completely wrong. He could suit up week 1. It would be something that just blows in the wind. This guy had some serious neck surgery that he was on the sidelines for almost the whole year and didn't do anything, man. And Rashad Penny had some spark to him. So that was definitely a guy I was looking towards drafting there, and Michael Gallup as well. But I'm steering here. I'm going to stick with another running back this year that I think is going to provide at least some kind of help in the next few years or so, just as a little boost to come off my bench. And I'm actually going Ronald Jones. I think he's on a great team. I think that he's a better running back than Clyde Edwards-Helaire, if you minus the fumble trouble. I'm a big believer in him. So I'm going Ronald Jones. I know he's going to show some sparks this year on that offense, coming to a brand new team where obviously, I don't think the Chiefs. I think ultimately the Chiefs regret taking Clyde, and they have to. Obviously, over all the running backs they did over that. Obviously, over all the running backs that they took over him, they regretted 100%. So this man, Clyde, I think is not what they expected, and I think Jones is going to come in and provide that boost this year, and I think it's going to get him some looks. So this is a guy I'm pulling off my bench probably towards the end of the year for some boost there, nothing crazy. And now I'm going to steer to wide receiver. And it's very interesting. Dante actually mentioned Kadarius Toney, who I'm a huge fan of. I think the guy is so talented, but I don't think any receiver for the Giants will succeed in the next 5 years or so.
You going Julio? You going Julio? Come on, man. My guy, 14 touchdowns last year. That was my prediction.
He almost had one and he stepped out.
Yeah, right.
I love Julio, man. You guys know more than ever. I think he's a great receiver, Hall of Fame in my book. I love the guy to death. That's definitely not a pick I'm taking in Dynasty. Injury history, age at this point, not being on a team at this point. That's just not a guy I'm taking. But I'm actually going to steer. I'm going for a long shot big name that kind of fell off with the injury
hear it.
last year. Everybody kind of forgot about him. And that's DJ Chark, man.
Ooh,
I just
yeah.
believe in that Detroit Lions team. So I'm buying into that team.
I'm
I
serious.
think they're on the come up, man. And this guy, along with Amon-Ra St. Brown, could be a deadly, deadly duo in the league this year. And I'm excited to see that, man. Everybody forgot about DJ Chark. He's on an up-and-coming team, a team that's going to obviously be throwing the ball a lot. You see what Amon-Ra St. Brown did. You saw what DeAndre Swift did in the passing game due to lack of really weapons. So I'm excited for this guy, man. He's coming back. I hope he's healthy, and he's a young guy, so a lot of years left for him.
I'm telling you, Mike, we're going to watch Hard Knocks together this summer, and I'm telling you, Amon-Ra and DJ Chark are going to skyrocket up these charts because, literally the only thing hindering them is it's Jared Goff because this team is going to blow up.
Right.
Count on it.
I believe Hard Knocks comes out. You talk about DeAndre Swift too. All of their stocks are going to skyrocket. So I agree with you there. I'm excited. I might be a Lions fan this year, low key.
Welcome to the team. So after Mike took Chark, went Mike Gesicki, Ramondre Stevenson, Melvin Gordon, Kadarius Toney finally went, and then Kenny Golladay. Oh boy, Kenny Golladay. What a misery tale.
That's how you tell it's a computer.
Because they even drafted him.
Yeah. You don't even draft that man. Come on.
Oh.
As a Giants fan, isn't that so sad to say? As a Giants fan, like I would love to,
Now, let me ask you guys this really quick because I know Kyle's on the clock. Do you think it's Kenny or do you think it's everything else around him? Because I think it's more so Kenny not being as great as expected and lesser of the area around him. What do you guys think?
I think he's in a crowded receiving room. He did very little with what he got last year, so he didn't really prove me wrong. But I think he went from being the only guy, him and Marvin Jones, the only guys catching the ball, to a team where Sterling Shepard was balling out last year. They drafted Kadarius Toney, Kenny Golladay, and then Evan Ingram and Saquon was catching passes. And I'm sure there are like 10 other receivers who were Slayton. Like they're all average or like slightly above average receivers. So like if like Daniel Jones can sit back there and throw to them if he has the time, which he doesn't. Right. So it's like a combination of not being the sole guy and then the Giants being incompetent and just having too much talent around him, which is, it's weird to say that it's too much talent around him, but it's too much like talent where Daniel Jones sits there and he's too flustered to know who to throw to, which is probably a Daniel Jones problem. But I don't know. I'm not fully blaming Kenny Golladay. That's where I'll end that.
Okay.
Yeah, as a Giants fan, I just feel like it's really dependent on their offensive line. And with me, especially with that offense, Kenny Golladay isn't someone that's necessarily on the field as much just because of his health issues. And for me, that's just kind of like a big thing in terms of fantasy. I don't want someone that's injury prone. That's just me. So I don't really feel that confident with Kenny Golladay, even if he is on the field with a healthy offense. Everyone's like ready to roll. I just feel like Kenny Golladay is inevitably going to get hurt. Whereas with Kadarius, of course, you're taking a chance with him as well, but he has yet to prove that he is injury prone because this was his first his rookie year. And with the games that he had, let me see real quick. Let me go back.
While you do that, Dante, I'm going to make my quick pick.
It's 13. No, go ahead.
It's Kenneth Gainwell. I'm just bolstering my running back room and getting a backup for Miles Sanders, and they're two guys who I think are startable any given week. Go ahead, Dante. You can give us your thoughts on Kadarius.
No, just the one game that I picked him up for. He had 13 receptions 13 targets. I'm sorry, 10 receptions, 189 yards. So I do feel like that's his potential, but it's just a question of whether he'll reach that with that offense.
That was
Um,
also the week where he was the only healthy receiver, too, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
But again, with Kenny Galladay, I mean, you can pretty much expect at least for some portion of the season to have that primary role, and especially with what he produced with the last time he was the primary role, I feel like that the offense, at least the offensive coordinator, would give him more opportunities to prove what he can do. In that extent. But it is me up again, and I'm actually gonna go quarterback here. I know it's a second quarterback league, but just in case Justin Herbert were to get hurt or have a season-ending ACL surgery or something like that, I'm gonna go Tua. I'm gonna go to just because number one, it's the second year. He's 24 years old and he's a quarterback, so I know that in terms of a longevity perspective, we're gonna be good on that front. He also has Tyreek Hill now, obviously with Jalen Waddle, so that's the fastest offense in terms of wide receivers. That's the fastest offense in the league. I think with that, speed kills. Shout out Eric for speed camp, but I think with that, he'll have more opportunities just because with the weapons that he has, I think he'll be able to produce in that aspect. And then my second pick, let's see, this is going to be a live pick. I really don't even know yet.
5 picks only.
We're going to go, this is going to be we're going to go Jacoby Myers with this second pick. Jacoby Myers, I think is clearly the number one option for the Patriots. It's his third year, so he's 25. You know what I mean? And we're gonna get at least another 6-7 years. Hopefully, if he produces the same way he does this last season, he had weeks where it's New Orleans, 14 targets, Tampa Bay, 12 targets. Indiana 12 targets. At this point in the draft, to get a player like that, we're gonna get those level of those opportunities. I feel like that's kind of rare, and for that reason alone, I think with this year coming up, we could see a major improve in terms of what Jacoby Myers can do. So I'm gonna take him with my second to last pick.
I'm fuming over here. After Dante took Jacoby, went Julio Jones, Gabe Davis, Rob Gronkowski, and Rondale Moore. And I was really hoping Gabriel Davis would make it back to me.
Same.
Oh, I thought about him last round, but I needed that RB depth. But, Gabe Davis. I love that man. I mean, I think the 5 touchdowns in the playoff game is peak Gabe Davis will ever get. But at the same time, we know that it's possible. And I think he is. They signed Jamison Crowder, and then I think Cole Beasley and Emmanuel Sanders are still there. Either way, I think he is still the wide receiver 2 in this offense. I think, if anything, the other guys help spread the field out more. And it Stiggs, Davis, and then everybody else. And then Knox, and then everybody else. So I'm mad that I didn't get Gabriel Davis. And because of that, I'm going to rage pick. Oh, I love this tight end. I'm finally going to take a tight end. I was debating waiting until the last round. But he's there, and I have a feeling he's going to get picked by a guy, probably team 8, for their second tight end or for their third tight end. And that's Irv Smith. We've seen very little Irv Smith as the tight end 1 in this offense. And when we have, he has been fantastic. And I mean, we lost him last season, but I think he's still not even 24. So he's going to come into an offense that I think is very, very good. And I think he's going to perform very, very well and be a very fantastic tight end one. I knew it. Oh, no, they didn't go tight end.
God damn.
Oh, the tight ends, man.
Yeah,
Wow.
so then we saw a tight end run. I kicked things off. Zach Ertz, Laviska Shenault. I think
That's what I wanted.
Yep.
That's what I wanted.
Everybody wanted. And then Hunter Henry, Cole Kmet, and Christian Kirk. And now, Michael, you are on the clock again.
We're back on the clock. And
Well, your final two picks. Go ahead, Dante.
Yeah.
No, go ahead because there's a time limit. Go ahead.
No, I could pause it. Go for it.
Yeah, go for it, man.
So would you take Jacoby Myers over Laviska? That was my question. I didn't know who to take.
Oh, they just traded for Devontae Parker.
Is Jacksonville or I mean New England? I mean, yeah, but I just feel like
I think I would have done what you did. I think I would have gone Jacoby over Laviska. I think the only reason I have hesitation is I think Laviska has a higher potential, and that offense is probably going to grow exponentially without Urban Meyer there, where Jacoby is kind of stuck in a low volume offense. But either way, I think I would have gone Jacoby over Laviska, but it's close.
Okay.
Yeah,
I just wanted to make sure I wasn't tweaking for that,
No, you're good.
No, that's warranted. That's a super close one. I would say I think Laviska is more talented, but if they didn't use him last year and they just signed Christian Kirk, I mean, I don't know how the hell he's going to get the ball this year. So they would have to figure it out. Like Kyle said, with Urban Meyer being gone, it could be a huge change there. But I think Laviska is more talented, but situation-wise, even with the Parker signing, I still think it's safer to go Myers. So, yeah, that's a great pick there. So now my pick, we're coming on around 11 and 12 here. Obviously, in your normal dynasty, you're going to have 18 rounds or whatever it is. So, so if we're looking at these next two rounds here, it's probably – I would say not a bad idea at this point to possibly stack tight ends, and I think that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to go Logan Thomas. I think he's just a great body, and I think Carson Wentz, if he's going to elevate anybody on that offense, it's going to be him. Carson Wentz just has a career of finding that underneath guy, his safety blanket. He did it with Philly. He didn't really do it too much in Indy. But, I mean, the run game was so phenomenal, you didn't even have to really throw that much. So I think he's a great tight end regardless, and I think he's in a pretty good spot. So it'll be nice to have Schultz and Thomas to spell me every few games or so there. And then I'm looking at the list again here and alluding back to something I said and even Kyle mentioned earlier about guys that are a little bit older, little bit veteran status that – are going to give you that role to possibly get in your lineup and win you a chip in the next few years or so. And this is a guy that I think it's a little questionable what's going to go on there, but I am going with Gus Edwards here. I think he's a great backup running back. I think if anything happens to JK, he's going to be the man. He was being drafted as the man with a 5th-round ADP last year when JK went down. And I think he lives up to that. This is a guy that you gave him the ball 2 years ago before JK got there, and he was giving you, rather the year that JK was there, he was giving you 100-yard rushing. So I absolutely love him in that spot. Great rotation back and a solid guy.
All right, and then after Gus Edwards was Van Jefferson, Raheem Mostert, Trey Sermon, Zach Moss, and Sony Michel. And kind of to round out this draft, and probably where I would take another one this time at this point, if there were more rounds available, I'm going to take a backup quarterback. And quite honestly, I think there are plenty to choose from still. It's tricky to look at this as a single QB league and only starting one and kind of looking at the field and knowing that there are more. But I'm looking and there's Tom Brady, Derek Carr, Kirk Cousins, Ryan Tannehill, Carson Wentz, Jameis Winston, Jimmy Garoppolo. And they're not fantastic. But at the same time, it's fantasy. Some of these guys are very good fantasy quarterbacks. And I'm looking at it as if Justin Fields isn't the guy, who am I comfortable slotting into my starting spot? And I'm stuck between two, and it's Tom Brady and Kirk Cousins. Tom Brady could play for 10 more years. He could play for half a season. And because of that uncertainty and because it's Dynasty and I'm looking at the next 4 seasons, 3 or 4 is kind of like the variable I give it. I'm going to jump over Tom Brady as much as he probably could lead me to a championship this year. I'm going to go with Kirk Cousins, a guy who has been the QB 11 in back-to-back seasons. And because of that, I'm comfortable with him as my QB just in case Justin Fields doesn't pan out. But at the same time, I have full faith in Justin Fields. So give me that great combo and a great backup quarterback.
So Kyle, I wanna ask you something here, because if I was in your spot, I would have gone with a different guy. What do you think about Derek Carr with the upgrade?
I like him more, but I think he's in a similar situation as Kirk Cousins with a good wide receiver 1, Justin Jefferson, Devonta Adams, and a very, very competent wide receiver 2, and Adam Thielen, Hunter Renfrow. It's not like Derek Carr is going to throw it more. He's just going to throw it to more competent receivers. So honestly, I see them very similarly. I think I'm just taking I know what Kirk Cousins has done in this offense compared to the uncertainty of what the heck Las Vegas is going to look like. And I truly think he's going to take that step forward, but I think Cousins is a little bit more reliable, and for that I'm going with him.
Yeah, and I was just wondering there because I was also seeing that same thing, is that Kirk Cousins had the given. Derek Carr we haven't seen, and like you said, I think he's going to take the step forward. I think they're only 2 years apart in age, which isn't too crazy, but I think there's a motivation behind Kirk Cousins this year. Derek Carr's got a little bit of pressure. They bring in the best receiver in football. If he doesn't produce, his ass will be gone, or they're going to replace him in the draft the following year. Kirk Cousins just signed a 1-year deal. He's got 1 year with that team, and if he doesn't prove himself in that 1 year, guess what? He's going to be going on 34 years old. Who's going to want Kirk Cousins? Not a contender. So I think this is a prove-it year. So, I was just asking Derek Carr there because it was a toss-up between the 2 guys left that I really like. But, yeah, I most likely would have went Cousins for that reason. I think he just has a lot more to play for this year, less pressure as well.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it's a toss-up. I went Cousins, yeah, like you said, like we both said, just because we've seen him in this offense. But it's a great question. That's a good, very similar.
All right, for mine, I kind of wanted to leave it up to you guys because I was I was tied between who I wanted to pick with. It's between Tyler Higbee and McCole Hardman. And the reason that I want to go, or the reason that I would want to go Tyler Higbee, is because that he is the number 1 tight end option. He does get receptions from Tyreek Hill, Michael Stafford, and that it obviously this is the last pick of the draft, so I'm not expecting to get that much production from him. But in terms of a backup tight end, I don't really think you get a better option besides Tyler Higbee. And then from McCole Hardman, with Tyreek Hill being absent, I just feel like it steps up his role. I know Juju Smith-Schuster is a part of the team, but let's be honest. How much do you expect him to take over the wide receiver core as much as Tyreek Hill did. That's just it's not feasible. He doesn't have the same amount of speed, and he's just isn't that much of a reliable receiver.
You're forgetting about Marquez Valdez-Scantling.
Yeah, right. So I'm gonna go I feel inclined to go McColl just because I know that Patrick has a rapport with him already. The snap share is really inviting, at least 69%, 78%. I'm not going to go through the whole season, but it really has stayed consistent throughout the point. And I don't know, I feel more inclined to go McCole Hardman just because it's the Chiefs offense. But this is the first year where the Chiefs offense is entirely different. So, I wanted to ask you guys, I didn't know what you guys were leaning towards besides Tyler Higbee and McCole Hardman.
I definitely like Higbee there. I definitely do like the pick. I also want to mention real quick, I agree with you on the Juju thing. You can't replace Tyreek Hill at all. He won't even be close. If they try it, they're morons. He's not going to replace him. Valdez, I think, is the guy that is going to be the safety blanket. We talk about a guy that didn't do much in his career at Green Bay, but a guy that didn't drop a ball last year. And if that is anything, that's great to be with McCole. If he's that guy. You never know with Cole. I see where your head is. That there's a huge gap to fill, and someone has to. And Cole is now the only one of those receivers that's been there and knows the system. So who knows? Maybe this is his year, but you really can't go wrong. I think your receivers are pretty solid. Taking it back to the tight end here, I think you're probably not going to find another tight end like Higbee. I'm looking at the tight end list. The only other one that I'm absolutely torn to that gets my attention is actually Albert, and I'm not going to try to pronounce that last name, not even attempt it, for the Broncos now that Noah Fant's gone. I like him too. I think his opportunity with Russ is fantastic. You talk about a guy that's 6'5", huge body, can get open. I mean, he's got some opportunity there, but those are really the only two tight ends I even like left. And in a dynasty, you always want to have that guy just in case. So I like the Higbee pick here.
So I would go Corey Davis just because I feel like he'll get the most touches in the short term. With Zach Wilson being a quarterback, I just feel like that he'll get the most production between the two. But in terms of longevity, with Corey Davis being in year 5 now, or going to be year 6 when the season starts, I would rather have McCole Hardman, who's a little bit younger and a more potent offense. And compared to Tyler Higbee, it's just I would rather have Pat Mahomes throwing me the ball than Matt Stafford. I know that's not really like a statistical reference, but it's just more of a feeling thing. And in fantasy, you really do have to go with your gut at the end of the day.
Especially in Dynasty.
Exactly. So I'm going to go McCole just because he's with a more potent offense. He's got a better quarterback. Let me just pick him so we could be done with it. Yeah, I'm going to go with McCole, more potent offense. He knows the system. Corey Davis is obviously a pick that you could choose as well, but at the end of the day, I'd rather have Pat Mahomes throwing me the ball than Zach Wilson. And I don't think that's a disrespect to Zach Wilson at all. But just given the fact that Pat Mahomes has been through that offense, McCole Hardman's been through that offense, I feel more comfortable picking a man like that than Corey Davis. So that's why I want McCole.
Yeah, and that wraps it up, man. I'm looking at our teams here, and I think we can confidently say that each of us kind of went our own direction here. I think without a doubt it's undisputed. I think Kyle has the best receivers, and young receivers too at that. Out of any of our teams here, I think Dante, your quarterback tight end combo is better than any of ours, and I think my running back combo kind of trumps everybody else's here, even though it's very, very close. But I like that we all kind of went different directions here, and I'm also more surprised that more quarterbacks didn't go earlier. I know it's one QB, but that was a little bit surprising to me.
So let me ask you something in a singular format in terms of quarterbacks. What do you think is the most important in terms of like position? Like, what would you value in a single quarterback draft compared to a double quarterback?
Probably points per game. That's about it. Average. Look at what they did last year. What's going on with the team? Did the team get better? Same OC, new receivers, anything like that. Like you look at Herbert, dude, and like nothing's really changed with Herbert. Same OC. You know what you're gonna get. He's gonna be a gunslinger. They're probably even gonna be a better team, like as a whole, like record wise next year with the amount of people they added, as long as they're healthy, obviously. So, like, yeah, I would say points per game. You know, it's always nice to have that rushing threat, but if your quarterback's throwing 50 times a game and he's got an arm, you can't go wrong, you know?
Yeah, I'm with Mike.
Yeah, and I think it's undisputed there. Like, and I really do love the Herbert pick. I think Herbert's got to be up there even in redraft this year. He's got to be way up there, you know? Like last year, you look at the ADPs, you really had Mahomes, Lamar, Murray going really early, and then past that, it was down the line. It was like, oh, there goes Herbert, there goes Josh Allen. Then it was like Dak last year, some Rodgers in there, like those kind of guys. Even Russ was that second-tier guy. But I think Herbert actually pushed himself to the top of that second tier this year. Like for me, I see Mahomes, I see Josh Allen, and I still see Lamar Jackson in that first tier for me, in terms of what they do points per game wise and how consistent they are. And then that second tier, I think this year, Justin Herbert is at the top of that tier. So that's a great snag, dude. And he's you look at the coaching situation around him; he's got a genius coach. I think that's just a great pick, and I did really freaking want him too. Almost said.
Yeah, I'm jealous of the Josh Allen pick. That's a big one. I wish I snagged him, but I guess if you need a guy, you got to get him early. And then, man,
do you think Darren Waller is too high for who he is, for where he is?
Darren,
29,
fifth round. I don't know. What do you think, Kyle, on that one?
Because the computer is just going to pick the best player overall, so it's kind of fun to be.
I think he's too high. I think he's too old, honestly. And at least in Dynasty, that's too high. And maybe he should be going around where like Dalton Schultz went. I honestly expected Freiermuth to be a little bit earlier, especially over Goddard, honestly. But I guess
really over Goddard,
it's tricky. I only say that because Freiermuth is going into his second year. And I mean, we haven't seen him without Ben, and maybe this team just becomes a run-only offense. And so because of that, it's tricky. So I expected him to be a little earlier, and I was debating him if Ridley wasn't there. But
that's all. Yeah, that's a late guy too. I think Waller did go a little bit early. 29 years old. He clearly fell off last year, and with Devontae being there this year, I mean, and it's not like he wasn't open last year. They just didn't throw him the ball. I don't know if it was Derek Carr, if it was the offense. You obviously had that whole scandal go on, head coaching change mid-year. Like, that was a huge mess. So maybe Waller's back to Waller next year. But, I mean, he fell off planet Earth, man. Like, with Gruden, without Gruden, he just was not seeing the ball for a huge chunk of last season. And You add Devonte Adams now, and you still got Renfro underneath. That's a guy I think way too early. I think you're drafting Pat Fryermuth over Darren Waller in dynasty startups. And there you go. You got your Steelers fan Vince there. Very excited about that Najee pick, Dante. You made him proud.
Would you take Dawson Knox over Darren Waller at this point?
Ooh. You know, I'm going to deflect this question to Kyle. Kyle's had Dawson Knox, I think, for the past 2-3 years in fantasy. So
let me real quick.
The only hesitation I have on Darren Waller in Dynasty is that the dude is almost 30. He's 29 right now, and he's turning 30 this year. And that alone spooks me to own him, to put so much draft capital into him so early on in a dynasty startup. If he were 25, no doubt, I think he'd be tight end 2. But he's 30, essentially. And I don't see him really performing much, especially now he's going to be 3rd on the totem pole in targets on this team. So, I don't know. Again, we haven't seen what this Vegas offense looks like, but it could be great for Waller. It could be very bad.
Yeah, Dawson Knox is 25, and Darren Waller's he's 29 right now. But by the season starts or goes through, probably 30. I don't know when his birthday is, the month, but the sentiment's there. It just, I don't know. I just feel like Darren Waller at this point, where we've gotten the best that we've gotten out of him. I think with if you were to pick him even in a regular fantasy draft just for the 1 year, I think you would still be able to get some sort of production out of him. But I'm not sure. I guess my question is, at what point, like what round would you take him at this point, being that, I'm not sure when his birthday is, but he's going to be 30 years old by the time the season ends, probably. So I'm not sure. I'm curious where you guys would take him at this point.
So are you talking dynasty or redraft for Waller here?
Redraft. Let's just do a regular redraft. Because I took him the second round. You know what I mean? He was my second pick. So I'm not sure like how far he's fallen off, given the fact that he produced so little this past season.
Yeah, like he was literally 2 years ago the tight end 2 in the league behind Kelsey, and then last year's like what the hell? But yeah, redraft. I mean, wow. I mean, this year it's obviously going to be the top 4 guys that, just like our dynasty draft here, it's going to be Pitts, Kittle, Andrews, and Kelsey in whatever order you want to choose as your top 4. And then I think every other tight end should probably go 7 or later, in my opinion. And if you want to start that like second tier with Waller, I think you can. I mean, the guy's super talented. Even at this age, you guys getting open. Like I said, it's more of a team and scheme concern. Like for me, I just don't know what's going on there. And you add Adams now, who's gonna get the ball. So yeah, seventh round or later for redraft. But kind of as we're talking here too, before we wrap it up, Dante, you're picking out like guys that you thought the picks were a little shaky. Who was your guys' worst pick in this dynasty draft? And obviously we're all keeping like age as an important factor here, skill, scheme, position, what team he's on, blah blah. Who's the worst pick on this board here?
You want me to go first, or you go?
Yeah, if you got it, let's hear it.
Chris Godwin.
Get out of here.
I know it's a hot take. I know it's a hot take, man. But I think I know that his. I was just like, before you asked me that question, I was just speculating through the.
So why do you hate Chris? I want to hear this now.
Tom Brady is throwing the ball, and I don't think that. I mean, I don't know what the future holds in terms of who's throwing the ball in the future, but right now Tom Brady's throwing the ball. So obviously you want to go with Chris Godwin, right? Because the best quarterback in football is in football history is throwing the football. But I just without Tom Brady throwing the ball, I'm not sure how much his production and in terms of dynasty, I'm not sure his production really follows through when Tom Brady retires. So that's why I go Chris Godwin. I mean, he's the fourth. I'm only going that way because he's a fourth round pick. But
okay,
if you got him like even a round after or maybe the 6th round, I would feel differently. But I would take Lamar Jackson. I would take Devonte Smith. I would take Amon-Ra Brown. I would even take Damian Harris over Chris Godwin. I know it's maybe a hot take, like for me, but I don't know. Without Tom Brady, I don't feel like he'll get the same production.
Hey, and listen, I see Kyle getting ready to say something, but I got to get this out now. Respectfully, I think you're out of your mind, man. You look at Chris Godwin in the 4th round with all these other receivers taken in that round. He had more points per game in every game he played last year and was a better receiver than all of them, points-wise.
With Tom Brady throwing the ball.
And the year before, only had 3 games below 10 fantasy points with the man Jameis.
And Ryan
Fitzpatrick. Only 3 games below 10 fantasy points, and the guy was a stud. I'm going to pull it up here to see what he was in the league with Jameis Winston throwing on the ball. Let's see. Okay.
I won't say Jameis Winston,
does not say it on the page.
Ryan Fitzpatrick and Tom Brady are both gunslingers. I think you could both.
So is Jameis. Jameis was a gunslinger, and I think that's his production. But I think you look at what's going on in Tampa Bay. They just handed the reins over to my guy. I forgot his name already. What's the guy's name? How did I forget already?
Fitzpatrick, Brady.
No, the head coach in Tampa Bay now.
Now it's Todd Bowles.
Todd Bowles taking over that team, man. I just think if you're good with Jameis Winston, I think you could be goddamn good with anybody. That's what I'm looking at there. And you talk about like a guy that's knows what it's like to play on a bad football team and still produce. And I think that's huge for a guy, like to be able to have no motivation to go out there and ball and still do it. 26 years old. And I'm just going to close it out with saying Keenan Allen was also taken in that round. That's definitely a few years older than him and slowly getting up there in age and declining. So I think you're off the rocks.
But in the context, all right. Keenan Allen was taken by a computer. All right. So the computer will pick the best overall player.
I don't give a shit, computer or not. You call out team 2 and you tell them it's a bad. You call them out.
Chris Godwin, bro. Chris Godwin, look, I understand that Chris Godwin, even for the next 2 years, is going to be a profitable pick. You know what I mean? I'm just saying in terms of dynasty, like if I'm thinking like 5 years or like longer, I don't know if I'd feel as comfortable picking Chris Godwin as opposed to an Elijah Mitchell or a Michael Pittman or a Mont-St. Brown, you know what I mean? I don't know if I don't know, or a Hunter Renfrow for my pick. I would take Hunter Renfrow ahead of Chris Godwin, especially based on how Hunter Renfrow. Yeah, what? I know. I will die on that hill, bro. Hunter Renfrow, the way Derek Carr has been targeting that man, give me a break, bro.
But he's not even going to see those targets this year.
You know that for a fact?
We don't. but he's definitely not going to have more or the same as what he did last year. Like, I think that you could rule that out at this point. Like,
see, I'd argue the same, and if he does produce the same, I'm happy. I'm happy with picking him. What is it? Was that the 7th round? I'd pick him the 7th. I'm happy picking him the 7th round if he's able to produce the amount that he produced last year. That's personally me.
If I think that if that you're talking about though is a 5% chance at this point.
5%?
With the money that they gave Devonte Adams on that contract, there is no way in hell that he's going there not to lead that team in targets and receptions. That I think you could rule that out completely. That's just not happening.
I argue differently. I think Hunter Renfrow is going to have the leading amount of targets by the end of the season. I think Hunter Renfrow is going to lead the targets and the receiving.
Well, listen, Kyle, I know we pull clips from this. I need you to pull this clip and save it until the end of the year, because that would be, if you were right on that, Dante, I would be shocked. If I was right, I won't be shocked at all. If you're right on that, my jaw will be on the floor, because I'm definitely
on Casamigos right now. All right.
Also, Kyle,
let's not get that twisted.
Let's jot down the Renfrow over Godwin pick as well.
Don't worry, I've got that.
I'm coherent enough.
I'm having fun here.
Enough. I would definitely put money on the fact that Hunter Renfrow will have a better. I don't want to say have more targets, because that's just you can't really depend on that being the better player. But I will say that Hunter Renfrow will have a better season.
So here, how are you saying that? Because can you name another guy that had 50 receptions on the Raiders last year? Can you? But
it's just Devontae going to that team, man. Like, Aaron Rodgers just gave that man so much production, bro. Like, I just feel like,
yeah, but he is the best receiver in the NFL.
Get that same level of production with Derek Carr, man. It's a chemistry thing. I don't think it's an ability thing. I think it's a chemistry.
Chemistry is kind of a bad argument, because they played in college together. So chemistry would lean Devontae, if anything. I would say.
What do you mean?
Devontae and Derek Carr.
Yeah, they played in college, but
if you're talking chemistry, those guys were basically brothers, bro. So
clearly a better player than Derek Carr. When I say chemistry, I mean the way their offense played, it was Devontae was boom, boom, I'm going to beat your defender and get a 5-yard catch each time. You know what I mean? And Aaron Rodgers threw that to Devontae in a way that he would only be able to catch it. I don't think that Derek Carr could throw it the way that Aaron Rodgers threw it. And for that reason, I don't think they'll get the same amount of catches.
I agree. I agree with that. I don't think Devontae is going to touch his fantasy points that he had in prior years.
And that's what I'm saying. And from a fantasy perspective,
I agree with that.
Football, you want to talk regular football? I can't argue that. You know what I mean?
Right.
In terms of fantasy, and that's all I care about. And this is what this stream is about. You know what I mean? What do you want me to do? I'm definitely taking. I definitely don't think that Devontae is going to be the same person that he was last year. Personally.
Right, and I think it's a small chance that he could get close to what he did, but I don't think he's going to match at all what he did in Green Bay ever again in his career. Not with the Raiders, at least. But there was nobody on that Raiders team last year. It was Renfrow City. That's why he saw those targets. You had Bryan Edwards, who barely got used. Yet you threw in Deshaun Jackson at one point. They had a mix of guys that did not see 50 targets or have 50 catches on the year. And
our defense was focused to Darren Waller. That's exactly right.
They didn't even use Darren Waller. So that to me shows that they leaned on one guy all year, and there is no way in hell that Renfrow comes close to his targets or receptions this year. I don't think – like I said, it's a 10% chance in my mind. But I can't even say anymore. I'm more so looking forward to when the year ends, seeing what the hell happens. Because if I am wrong on this, dude, I will be shocked. I'm not gonna lie. Kyle, the whole time you're making faces up there, you got to say something at this point, Kyle. Be Kyle, be the icebreaker here. Lean one side, and then we'll wrap this up here.
I'm going Godwin. I think he is
for Dynasty. For Dynasty, it's not just this upcoming year or the next
I agree.
year. The Dynasty.
I'm taking Godwin.
Okay.
I think Godwin. What? No, give me Godwin. I'm not even debating that. Give me Godwin in Dynasty.
Sounds like you were. It's early.
I thought I was thinking about it, but no, it's undoubtedly Godwin. However, I probably would have taken. I would have taken T. Higgins, but DJ Moore above him. Probably Deontay Johnson. Those are just a few guys. But I think my worst. I didn't even get to say my worst. My least favorite pick of this draft is probably Tyreek Hill at 111. I'm not a fan. I think that's a gross one. But as Dante will say, it was a computer pick. But
right. No, that's actually a good point. I was actually looking at Cam Akers in the second round. Not that it's a bad pick for the upcoming years, but I think Sean McVay is no idiot. I think that man is smart and will not follow this NFL history trend of keeping running backs long term. I could see him honestly having a committee by running back for the rest of his tenure in LA and shipping them off when their rookie contracts are done. He's too smart to fall into that NFL history trap that, maybe started or definitely continued with the signing of Zeke when he was past his prime for a 5-year deal. Jerry Jones could only imagine that shit, I guess. But yeah, I think McVay is just too smart. Cam Akers redraft, we could talk second, third round, definitely. Dynasty, even for how young he is, I just don't think that is a system that is committed to one guy, and I think he won't be on the Rams long term. So that's kind of why I'm leaning there. Obviously, that's a take. I could be very wrong, but I think the NFL, these younger coaches are evolving now, and they're not going to keep falling for that same mistake. When the rookie contract is done in 4 years, you get rid of them, because by that point, they're on the decline. They're usually coming out of their prime at that point. So I don't know what's going on with Akers. And even when Akers came back, he had a little bit of a splash play here and there. He wasn't looking anything crazy for that playoff run. I don't even remember how many games he played, but he didn't really stand out. And Henderson still got his fair share. So you're obviously looking at a committee next year led by Akers, but in Dynasty, I don't think he's going to stay on the Rams, and I don't see him being the sole guy there. But like I said, that's a take there. So yeah, Tyreek Hill definitely though. You opened my eye on that one. Tyreek Hill, Cam Akers from here.
You would take Javonte Williams over Tyreek Hill?
Without a doubt. That for me is a no-brainer, because I think Javonte Williams is going to outscore Tyreek Hill in fantasy points this year, without a doubt. You look at what Javonte had last year as an RB2, I think it's just so consistent that Javonte's average is going to be way better than Hill's. So, and who knows? I mean, like we said to start the show, Miami and the Raiders, man, we don't know what we're going to get out of them this year. And it is some scary waters to dive into, especially in the first round, knowing that you have no idea what you're going to get from Tyreek Hill. And I think this is the first year in many years of fantasy that a receiver will not be taken in the first round. You look at the guys that were always – hey, you look at Devonta Adams,
Cooper Kupp.
So there's if you're going to draft a receiver this year, first overall, I think it is Kupp, for the record. I think he's that 10, 11, 12 guy end of the first round. But that's also another question mark. Kupp got that production even with Woods being there. He was still an animal. But Allen Robinson is actually a different animal. Skill-wise, easily, you can call
Allen Robinson?
Top 7 receiver in the league skill-wise, easily. Guy's an animal. He's better than Robert Woods. That's another smaller question mark. Nothing's going to change, I think, with Cooper Kupp and what he's going to do. He's obviously never going to produce this season again. I think that's a given. It's almost impossible to ever do this again. But I think Allen Robinson is actually a true number 1 receiver playing a number 2 role now. So he's gonna have his games. It's gonna be interesting. I'm just a little bit scared, if anything. There's nothing to prove it yet, but he is better than Robert Woods. And like I said, he's the number 1 receiver on just about any team in the NFL. So that's a smaller question mark for me. That's why I would probably stay away from Kupp first round. But you guys obviously are pro wide receiver first round. Is it definitely Kupp for both of you guys?
How old is Kupp? How old is Kupp?
Well, we're talking redraft right now.
We shifted a little bit here. Yeah.
Okay. I'd say Kupp, and I'd probably take Justin Jefferson first round.
Okay. I think Justin Jefferson's the only receiver that you absolutely know what you're going to get. The situation hasn't changed. Nothing's changed.
Yes, I agree.
He's the safest pick this year. And I didn't even want to talk about him.
At 28 years old, though, are you taking him first round?
In Dynasty for who? Cooper Kupp?
Mm-hmm.
In Dynasty, no. Probably early second.
Second, third for me. Second, third.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, listen, I've been on the record saying this before, literally in our past video. I think Cooper Kupp as a skill point receiver is overrated. I think a lot of what he got this year was just beautiful coaching, beautiful play. The guy deserved every penny of it. He was the best wide receiver in football last year over Devonta Adams, I think. The way he played, props where props are due. I think the guy was a huge boost because of the system. Can
you blame a player because of the system, though?
I can credit him because of the system, if that's what you mean. Yes, I'm going to.
He's part of the system. So, why wouldn't you take him? It doesn't seem like they would trade the player for whatever reason. The Cooper Kupp I'm talking about. So why wouldn't you take him? As a dynasty player, why wouldn't you take him? If he produced the way he produced this last year, do you expect him to produce the same thing? Why wouldn't you take him? At least in the top 3 rounds.
I would though. So that I would take him up there. I would definitely take him up there. Just not first round. I would definitely in Dynasty look probably second or third easily. And you can even argue turnaround in the second, like that 12, 11, 10, 9 coming back. I just I thought it was a little too early, and he's definitely. I think nobody can go into the mindset that he's going to reproduce what he did last year because, like I said, that's just impossible.
Yeah.
It's kind of like what McCaffrey did that one year where he was second all-time to, I think, Jerry Rice in points in a season. So, that's just absurd numbers. But like I said, Allen Robinson, I think, is going to be a huge factor this year. And they even added Odell. Allen Robinson is light years ahead of Odell Beckham, like light years. Odell maybe in his prime. They were very close, but I think he's going to add that extra spark this year. So I'm not discrediting Kupp for the Allen Robinson, but on top of probably even if you put him in the same situation, like I said, it's literally impossible to recreate what he did. So I'll let everybody else kind of feed off of that ADP, and I'll probably snag Allen Robinson in the 3rd or 4th. I'll take that all day.
Cool.
All right.
All right. I think it's worth it. We running up a little bit under 2 hours here, which, I mean, it's a mock draft. We gotta take our time mocking and perfecting these teams.
That's true. That's true.
And so we did. And we'll be posting our final teams kind of on Instagram. And if you're checking this out, give us a check out over there at First Seed Fantasy, where we'll be posting our individual teams, and you guys can vote on which ones who you think won this draft. And I think we all kind of killed it in our own separate ways. But obviously, I think I had the best team. But aside from that, I will copy what Dante said earlier. Use code First Seed Fantasy Underdog for a fantastic 100% 100% deposit match up to $100. That's basically if you deposit 50, you get an extra 50. Play around with it. Hop into some best balls. There's some Masters props going on for this weekend. Baseball is coming around, and I wouldn't be surprised if they've got a ton going on for that. And I'm excited for baseball. I know Mike is. And Dante, I'm not sure your thoughts on baseball.
Ooh, in the first Mets game, bro. Come on.
Oh, well, love
Are
to
you
hear
a Mets fan too?
I'm a Mets fan, bro. Born and raised. I saw Mike Piazza multiple times with my dad when I was a kid, so I didn't have a choice.
Nice. I know they're starting off without DeGrom and Scherzer this year, so but
we'll see as the year goes on.
I am happily cheering on the Angels for the lovely Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani, two kings of the diamond, I should say. But yeah, use code First Seed. Follow us on the socials. You'll see those on the other two over there. Yeah, give us a follow, give us a shout. Thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in if you're watching on Twitch, and have a great night, everybody.
See you.
Peace.